This video will demonstrate how to create and modify a copper area in your design within the Allegro PCB Editor. Copper areas can be put down either on conductor layer or plane layers. The key thing to remember is a copper area inside the Allegro PCB Editor is a database element of a shape. So whenever you're going to do any kind of work for a copper area, you must work through these shapes. There are two different ways of working with shapes. You can either go through the shape pull down to get to all the commands through there, or use the shape icons. So let's start with a relative simple task of adding in a shape. So I'm going to select the shape add rectangle command. As always, let's check our active class and subclass. I'm going to go on the top layer. Most of the time you're going to be putting in dynamic copper. You can put in static copper or crosshatch as you want to. We'll just do a dynamic copper. I'm going to assign that to a net. Just put A0. I'm just going to draw a copper area over here. All right, so I have a copper area defined there. Let's see what happens when I route into it. So I'm going to add the route command. Just start from this pin, go up, add a via. And doesn't look like much happened here because it looks like it just put that piece of routing right through that shape. What's going on is a file in the display status. I have my dynamic fill set to disabled. What this means is the system will know about the differences between the two different nets. It's not going to really create a short, however, it's not going to show you anything. This is a potential performance saving option. If you have a board with many different power and ground planes and lots of different power and ground pins, performance might be an issue. So in this case, this board is kind of small. I'm going to set this to smooth. I'm also going to do an update to smooth to get that copper pour up to date and looking like it's supposed to. And if we look at it in here, we'll zoom real quickly, you can see that that actually does have clearance around the routing and around the via. So it's what happens. Let's see what happens in real time when we add in routing. You can see the plowing effect in real time, and everything is cleared correctly. Now let's say we want to modify that copper area and change it to a different net. Remember, anytime I want to work on a copper area, I have to go in through a shape command. The shape command right here, shape select. I'm going to select on that shape. I'm just going to come over and assign that to a different net. And these are all the nets in the database. If I can find the one I want, I'm going to assign it to that net. So let's route into that from a pin that's on that net. Have to know that this net is NCS. So when I go into here, and I add a via, that connection is made. If we take a look at that connection though, it's still, the via made a direct connect. So why did it do that? Let's go in again under our shape. We'll go to something called global dynamic parameters. This is the form that's used to do all the shape pouring and clearing and connection. So the shape fill folder tab, the first one, specifies whether you're going to have a dynamic fill, a smooth for disabled, whether it's going to be a filled or a crosshatch type shape. The void controls, this is going to take care of, as it says, kind of controlling different way of voids are done. You should always set the artwork format here to match the artwork format going out. You can do pin voids individually or inline, items like that. The clearances is what drives how far away the shape is opened up from a obstacle, either a line or via or whatever. By default, you can use your DRC system. You can also use your thermal or anti-pad definitions in your pad stack. And you can also oversize that if you wanted to. And thermal reliefs is the one that says how are the connections made. So I can do different connections for through pins versus surface mount pins versus vias. Notice my via says full contact. That is why that via has no thermal relief around it. Now suppose we actually wanted this via to act differently on this shape than all our other shapes. I can select the shape again using the shape select icon. If I do a right mouse button with that selected, I can do a parameters, and now I'm working on the dynamic shape instance parameters. And I can go to my thermal reliefs and say, you know what, in this shape, I want my vias to be diagonally connected. And when I get done, you can see now that there is a diagonal connection made on that via into that shape. Let's suppose that this via, we want to have a little bit more clearance around it than other vias. I can go into Edit Properties, check my Find filter, and make sure I'm only using vias. Select on that via. Any property that starts with DYN is a dynamic shape property. I want the dynamic clearance oversize array. I'm going to assign that. I want all values on all layers to be 10 mils over. And when I look at that via now, I'll have an extra 10 mil clearance around that via. Let's add another shape on top of this NCS shape. I'm going to use a shape rectangle. Put it on the A0 net again. Start out here, something like that. And notice what it did is it made the A0 shape less important than the NCS shape. So I have more copper in my NCS shape. But suppose I wanted that the A0 shape was more important than the NCS. I wanted more copper on this one. I can select the shape. And with it selected, I can do a right mouse button, raise priority. And now it said, okay, since this shape has a higher priority, I will give it more copper and break the NCS shape away from that. This concludes the demonstration on how to create and modify a copper area in your design within the Allegro PCB Editor.